Now I hope that this video can tell you everything you need to know about gaming on a 4K 144Hz IPS display. Full benchmarks of older and newer games, full system specs, what kind of hardware you can use to do this with and absolutely not annihilate your wallet, and what you can expect. Now all of this is recorded on my main PC using a 12700K overclocked to 5.1 on all P cores and 4.1 on all E cores, and that is cooled with an H150i Elite LCD currently. An RTX 3090, 64 gigabytes of G-Skills, 6000 megahertz DDR5 RAM, and a 1200 watt HX 1200 from Corsair, which is completely overkill for a system like this. Now the absolute first thing I want to say about gaming at 4K, that rhyme though, I'm going to be absolutely annihilating this commentary, I can already tell. Generally, I don't like to max out competitive games at this resolution, but if you're just playing single player games, especially older ones, then the experience that you'll get is unreal. Is the only word to describe it. And 4K gaming used to be a twinkle in the eye of PC gamers, or even especially console gamers. But now it's so common, but it's still not 100% viable unless you're shelling out $2,000 for a graphics card, and at least that's what some people think. But hopefully today I can change your mind and make you realize that you don't need to build a $3,000 computer to be able to game at 4K. So first I want to talk a little bit about the monitor, and this monitor that we're using here today is an Acer XB283K Kvbmiipruzx LCD Agile Splendor IPS 4K 144Hz 28-inch monitor. That was a mouthful. This does support adaptive sync, so whether you're using an NVIDIA or a AMD graphics card, it'll work either way. It has a display port, an HDMI port, and some USB ports, which is nice. Now, I do gotta say, my one gripe about this monitor is it doesn't use your standard, like, 3-prong computer power supply. Now, the other thing, and I'll show you here in the OSD menu, and this really drove me nuts, was this monitor has USB-C, but you can't really enable that in USB 3 at the same time. So that kind of... Also, the monitor came to me with the USB ports turned off, and I thought that didn't work. So watch out for that if you decide to get this monitor. But other than that, this monitor seems pretty good to me. It also supports HDR10, and it's been an amazing experience so far for me. Now that we've talked about the monitor and the PC, we could talk about the graphics card. And my God, this thing held up way better than I expected. This is the MSI Gaming X Trio RTX 3090. At one point, this was the fastest card that you could possibly buy. This has 24 gigabytes of GDDR6X memory with a memory speed of 19.5 gigabits per second. 10,496 CUDA cores with a boost clock of 1785 megahertz. This card can consume up to 370 watts, and me personally, myself, I have seen way more. This uses 3 8-pin connectors, so you are going to need a beefy power supply if you want to run a card like this. This card did way better than I would expect. I thought for a second that I was going to feel the need to upgrade to a 4090. That just was not the case here at all. So getting into more modern games, this is Star Citizen. If you haven't heard of this game before, or tried it especially, I definitely recommend giving it a shot. It's still in pre-alpha, and it still needs a lot of work done, but this game is amazing. You probably heard a lot about it around when Starfield was coming out, which also, another amazing space game. I am a sucker for full exploration space games, and I was so excited to try this game when I got this monitor, but I was so worried how it would run. Now, I've got the performance metrics in the top left. Basically, I'm aiming for anything above 30 to 40 FPS for games like this, where there's not a whole lot of competitive shooting. Now, there is in this game in certain areas, depending what you're doing. But most of the time when I play this game, it's really just to enjoy the view. So whatever frame rate I was getting on planet, I do believe this was Area 18, was perfectly playable for me. And out in space, I get like over 60, anywhere to like 100. So. Now, not only will at 4K this game absolutely hammer your graphics card, but this game, no matter what, loves RAM. I wouldn't recommend any less than 32 gigs to play Star Citizen. Otherwise, it's going to be really stuttery. And another thing is, make sure you have this game on your SSD. It'll be the worst experience ever if you do not. I remember playing this on a hard drive. It was like, I think it took like 10 minutes to load into the map, and then another 10 minutes just for things to load in and stabilize and stop fluctuating and bouncing me all over the place. And it's just, if you want to play Star Citizen, I would get an SSD. So here's the monitor that we chose. It's a 144Hz MSI monitor. Now, this is actually brand new on Newegg. Obviously, at the time of this video, this was the price, but the prices can change. But I think this is a good buy. I mean, it's an IPS monitor, 144Hz, 4K. At this price point, I feel like you're getting a good entry into the 4K experience. So I took the liberty of throwing together some pre-builts, one for around $1,500 and one for around $2,000, and those prices will both include the monitor. And you're not going to max out every game at 4K at 60 FPS with these computers, and basically the only thing that changed between the two when I upped the price was the graphics card. We went from a 4060 to a 4070 Ti, I think, in the $2,000 one, and from 16 to 32 gigabytes of RAM. At this resolution, the CPU isn't all that big of a deal. I mean, a 7600 is going to be just fine for gaming at 4K. Obviously, you can always upgrade that later, of course. And in the cheaper PC, we only went with a 500 gigabyte M.2, but also you can always add more storage later as well. But in the $2,000 one, we added a 1 terabyte, I believe, or a 2 terabyte, just for extra games and everything. Most of the time when playing on this PC, I would be genuinely surprised if you do not see over 60 FPS on older games like Battlefield 4, as you can see here. And this is, I believe, with 110% or 115% render resolution and anti-aliasing, even though at this resolution anti-aliasing is entirely redundant. You can't, unless you're sitting like super close, which you shouldn't be, you can't see individual pixels, and even then it's going to be super hard. So if really mostly what you play is older games like Battlefield 4 or like the older Call of Duties or BioShocks or anything like that, really, if older games are your thing, then really you don't need to spend a lot of money to run those games at higher resolutions. I mean, my PC isn't top tier by any means, but it runs all these games just amazing. Even in intense scenes, it keeps up really, really well. So if games like Fortnite are more your cup of tea, then you can expect playable performance on the 3090. Now, I do know that the 4070 Ti and the 3090 are super close in terms of raw performance, even in ray tracing performance, if I do remember correctly. I do believe this was with the Lumen settings on at 4K with DLSS on quality on with ray tracing. So it was pretty much always above 60 FPS. Definitely playable, and I definitely never really felt at an advantage playing at these settings. And like I said, with a 4070 Ti, you can probably expect around the same FPS. But the 4070 Ti does have half of the VRAM, which could potentially hurt you in some scenarios where your GPU memory is doing 12 gigabytes for 4K is just not a lot anymore. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this video, and if you did, I really hope you guys decide to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, and let me know what your first experience was gaming at 4K and how you felt about it. Or if it wasn't gaming and you were just watching a movie in Ultra HD. I would love to hear anything that you guys have to say. Really, anything tech related at all. I didn't want this to become just another benchmark video because I didn't really want to talk about a bunch of benchmarks because you can find those everywhere. What I wanted to talk about was the true experience that you can get from gaming at a resolution this high, or even higher if you have a computer capable of doing that. And basically, to boil it down, you can always expect better visual clarity, and honestly, I feel like in games where there's a lot of long-range combat, this can actually help you quite a bit because it just makes it easier to see people from that distance, and the clarity and the less pixelation and the quality of it just, I don't know, it helps my eyes to see things better. Your experience may differ a little bit, but on a monitor like this with good color, with HDR, at 4K at a high refresh rate, I mean, it truly is an experience that I hope everybody gets to see someday. And if you have the money to get like a 4K OLED, I would recommend it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you did, please like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.